Welcome back to All Things Soggy Buns. Today we're diving into, well, a real BBQ staple. You know it,
Love.
smoked corn on the cob. Um, and I'm excited because we're going to kind of go deeper than just a simple recipe here. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll be smoking corn like a pro.
Yeah, love it. And just a reminder for anyone new to the show, Soggy Buns is a Maryland-based food truck and catering service known for their incredible BBQ and other delicious sides, including that smoked corn on the cob.
Right. I think we can all agree corn on the cob is pretty amazing on its own. But what is it about that smoky flavor that transforms it into something truly special?
We're adding like a whole other dimension of flavor, you know?
Yeah.
When that smoke hits the corn, it's almost like you're caramelizing the sugars. It creates this savory depth that balances out the natural sweetness. And I know there's something primal and satisfying about food cooked over fire.
I'm with you there. So let's get into the how-tos. The recipe itself is surprisingly simple. You start by soaking the corn, still in its husks, in water for a good 2 hours. Now, why is that soaking step so important?
It's all about the moisture. Soaking the corn beforehand ensures that it stays juicy and tender during the smoking process. Nobody wants dry, chewy corn.
Makes total sense. Now, while the corn is soaking, you'll also want to soak your wood chips for about 30 minutes. And speaking of wood chips, they're essential for infusing the corn with that smoky goodness. What are some things folks should keep in mind when choosing wood chips?
Oh, there are a lot of options out there. Hickory is a great all-around choice, offers a classic, robust, smoky flavor. Mesquite is another popular option, but it's got a more intense, almost earthy flavor, so you might want to use it a little more sparingly. Then you've got applewood for a milder, slightly sweet smoke, and cherrywood, which is fantastic with pork and pairs well with the sweetness of the corn.
Wow, so many choices. And that's just the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Because you can really tailor the flavor profile based on the wood you use.
Exactly. That's one of the things that makes smoking so much fun. You can experiment and find what you like best.
This is making me hungry already. And if you're listening and feeling the same way, you can always head over to soggybuns.com. That's BUNZ.com to check out their full menu. They've got all kinds of mouth-watering BBQ and sides. Okay, so we've got the corn, soak in the wood chips ready to go. What's next?
Next, you fire up your smoker. You want to preheat it to about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you arrange the corn on wire racks, making sure they're not stacked, so they cook evenly.
Okay, so once the smoker's preheated and the corn is all set up, how long are we talking about for the actual smoking process?
You're looking at about 60 to 75 minutes, depending on your smoker and the size of the corn. But the key is to keep an eye on it. You'll know it's done when the husks have a nice golden brown color and the corn is tender enough to be pierced easily with a fork.
Gotcha, so it's not just about the time, it's really about watching for those visual cues.
Exactly. You'll get a feel for it over time. But even for a beginner, it's pretty straightforward. Now, here's where things get really exciting.
I was hoping you'd say that. The finishing touches can make all the difference, right?
Absolutely. After smoking, you brush the corn with a mixture of melted butter, fresh cilantro, lime zest, and juice, and a touch of paprika. That's the classic Soggy Buns recipe. And let me tell you, it's a flavor explosion.
Oh man, that sounds incredible. But even beyond that specific recipe, there's so much room for creativity with the toppings, right?
You can get as creative as you want. You could do different flavored butters, add some cheese for a salty kick, or even go for some heat with chili powder or cayenne pepper. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
Okay, now you're really speaking my language.
Yeah.
I love that there's room to personalize it and try out new flavor combinations. So we've covered the basics of prepping and smoking the corn, talked about different wood options for that perfect smoky flavor, and even touched on some finishing touches. What are some common questions or challenges people tend to run into?
One question we get a lot is about using frozen corn.
Right. I was wondering about that too. Is that a total no-go or is there a way to make it work?
It definitely works. The key is to thaw it completely, and maybe even pat it dry before soaking to avoid it getting waterlogged. You can also adjust the soaking time a bit, maybe an hour and a half instead of 2 hours. But other than that, the process is pretty much the same.
Good to know. What about figuring out when the corn is done? Are there any telltale signs besides the color of the husks?
Well, you'll start to smell that amazing smoky aroma when it's getting close. And as I mentioned earlier, you want the kernels to be tender but not mushy. If you can easily pierce them with a fork, they're good to go.
I'm getting the sense that a lot of this is just about trusting your senses. Seeing, smelling, it's almost like an art form as much as it is a cooking technique.
I totally agree. There's a certain intuition that comes with experience. But even for someone who's never smoked corn before, it's pretty approachable.
And that's what I love about this deep dive. We're not just giving you a recipe, we're giving you the knowledge and confidence to make it your own.
Exactly. And that's what good food is all about.
So we've talked a lot about getting the perfect smoky flavor. But let's say you're prepping for a big BBQ and you want to get a head start. Can you smoke the corn in advance?
Absolutely. Once the corn is smoked, let it cool completely. Then you can wrap it tightly in plastic wrap or aluminum foil and store it in the refrigerator for up to 2 days. When you're ready to serve it, just reheat it on the grill or in the oven until it's warmed through.
That's a game changer for party planning. Now I have to ask, beyond the classic butter, cilantro, and lime combo, what are some of your favorite creative toppings for smoked corn?
Oh, there are so many possibilities. You could try flavored butters, like garlic herb or chili lime. Even something like a honey sriracha butter would be amazing.
Okay, that's intriguing. I'm all about a little sweet heat.
Right. And you can't go wrong with cheese. Cotija or Parmesan would add a nice salty kick.
Those are great ideas.
Hmm.
And for those who like things spicy, I imagine a sprinkle of chili powder or cayenne pepper would be delicious.
Exactly. And sometimes I like to add a little something fresh and bright to balance out the smoky richness. So a sprinkle of chopped fresh herbs like parsley or chives can really elevate the flavor.
Now you're making my mouth water. I love how versatile smoked corn can be. It's a blank canvas for flavor.
That's what makes it so much fun, and it's really not that intimidating once you break it down.
And that's the beauty of having a food truck like Soggy Buns around. You don't have to be a master smoker to enjoy this incredible dish.
Mm.
Speaking of Soggy Buns, make sure to check out their website at soggybuns.com. That's BUNZ.SC. They've got the smoked corn on the cob down to a science, along with all their other delicious BBQ offerings.
It's true, their smoked corn is legendary. And they're always coming up with new and creative dishes, too.
This conversation has me thinking about the bigger picture. We often talk about how food connects us to our culture and our history. I wonder if there's a story behind smoked corn. Do you know anything about its origins?
That's a great question. I did a little digging, and it turns out that indigenous cultures in North and South America have been smoking corn for centuries as a way to preserve it. It was a staple food for many tribes, and smoking allowed them to enjoy it year-round.
Wow, that's fascinating. So this dish that we're enjoying today has deep roots in history and tradition.
It really does, and it's a reminder that even something as simple as smoking corn can be a celebration of culture and heritage.
I love that perspective. It adds a whole other layer of meaning to the experience.
And it makes you appreciate the ingenuity and resourcefulness of those who came before us.
Absolutely. So we've gone from the nitty-gritty of smoking techniques to a glimpse into the history of smoked corn. I feel like we've really covered a lot of ground here.
I agree. We've explored the what, the how, and even the why behind this delicious and versatile dish.
This has been such a fun and informative deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to fire up my smoker and experiment with some new flavors.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired as well. Remember, cooking should be fun and adventurous.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about embracing the process and making it your own. And who knows, you might even discover a new family favorite along the way.
Exactly. And don't forget to share your creations with us on social media. We'd love to see what you come up with.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to Soggy Buns one last time.
Of course.
We've talked a lot about their smoked corn, but they have so much more to offer. What are some of the other dishes you think our listeners should know about?
Well, their BBQ ribs are incredible, fall off the bone tender and packed with flavor. And their pulled pork is another must-try. It's smoky, juicy, and perfect for sandwiches or sliders.
I'm hearing a lot of smoky, juicy goodness. What about sides? Do they have anything that pairs particularly well with the smoked corn?
Oh, definitely. Their mac and cheese is creamy, cheesy perfection. And their coleslaw has a nice, tangy crunch that complements the smoky flavors beautifully.
Okay, I'm officially starving now. And for anyone listening who hasn't tried Soggy Buns yet, what are you waiting for? You can find them all over Maryland, and they also do catering. Head over to their website, soggybuns.com. That's buns, B-U-N-Z.com. To find their schedule, their full menu, and their catering information. Trust me, you won't be disappointed.
They're truly a local gem. and their passion for BBQ shines through in every dish.
It's amazing how something as simple as smoked corn on the cob can have such a rich history and so much potential for creativity in the kitchen.
I know, right? It really speaks to the power of food to connect us to the past and inspire us in the present.
And it's a perfect example of how Soggy Buns takes classic dishes and elevates them to a whole new level.
Absolutely. Their passion for BBQ and their commitment to using fresh, high-quality ingredients really shines through in everything they do.
So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to try their hand at smoking corn on the cob, what are your top tips for success?
Well, first and foremost, don't be afraid to experiment. Try different types of wood chips, play around with different soaking times, and get creative with the toppings. There's no right or wrong way to do it, as long as you're having fun and enjoying the process.
That's such great advice. It's easy to get caught up in following a recipe exactly, but sometimes the best results come from trusting your instincts and trying something new.
Exactly. And remember, even if your first attempt isn't perfect, that's okay. It's all part of the learning experience. Just keep practicing and you'll be smoking corn like a pro in no time.
And in the meantime, you can always head over to Soggy Buns and let them do the hard work for you. They've definitely perfected the art of smoked corn on the cob, and it pairs perfectly with all their other delicious BBQ offerings.
I couldn't agree more. Whether you're a seasoned smoker or a curious beginner, Soggy Buns is the perfect place to experience the magic of this classic dish.
Well, it's been a fantastic deep dive into the world of smoked corn on the cob. I feel like we've learned so much from the history and techniques to the endless possibilities for flavor.
Me too. It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you and our listeners.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on the All Things Soggy Buns podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and that you'll tune in again for more delicious deep dives into the world of food and BBQ. Until then, happy eating.